Probably the best veteran addition San Francisco made this offseason was trading a mid-round pick to acquire Bryce Huff from the Eagles, who currently not only has the fastest sack in the NFL after sacking Spencer Rattler in 2.44 seconds on his game-winning sack, but he also has the 11th highest pass rush grade of all defensive ends in the league according to PFF. Meaning for the first time since Dee Ford, San Francisco has a truly dominant speed rusher on the outside who can quickly bend the corner in large part due to his first step, but he also has pretty great technique. Not only does he keep his hands active throughout the rep, a lot of people don't realize how powerful his bull rush is, which allows him to collapse the pocket. So in this video, I wanted to go over a player a lot of people initially overlooked in Bryce Huff by going over his most recent Saints game to examine what he's excelled with, as well as the areas he needs to continue to improve, and why I think he'll end up being a Pro Bowl level defensive end. To start out, where Huff always jumps out on his tape to me is yes his first step, but how he's able to quickly transition that first step into an insane bend which most defensive ends wouldn't be able to replicate, which you really got to see on his game-winning sack. To really illustrate just how quick his first step is, for instance, on this play, before Williams even gets his first step down, Huff has 2 steps down, really pushing this tackle up the field. So even before this tackle can respond, he's almost reaching his outside shoulder, which allows him to bend the corner on this play. And to really focus on his bend, here he's dipping his inside shoulder, which makes him a lot more challenging for the tackle to actually grab a hold of, and he's actually getting underneath his arms on this play before finally exploding through and getting the sack on Rattler. You really can't teach this bend or get off Huff possesses, which is why Saleh was so happy he was able to get him from the Eagles this offseason. And as much as I like Huff's raw athleticism, he also has truly developed into a dominant pass rusher with the way he uses his hands and the variety of moves he can attack tackles and guards with. To really illustrate this point, on this play, Huff is attacking 75 with a hand swipe, but first he sets it up by jabbing hard in front of this tackle's face, and as soon as this tackle is attacking him with his hand, he's coming over with a hand swipe to disrupt his base, and like we see in the previous play, he's able to curve around this tackle's arms and get the pressure on the quarterback once again. Another great part about Huff's game is how he quickly is able to transition into another move once his first move doesn't work. Here for instance, once again he's attempting to attack 75 with a hand swipe, but it's not as effective as last play, so he moves into a rip move, and honestly to me this is a hold. He's grabbing a hold of Huff's neck, keeps a hold there, and then tackles him all the way to the floor. I don't know how you miss this as a ref, but it probably should have been a sack for Huff on this play. Another move I really like of Huff's is his dip into rip move, which once again takes advantage of his ability to use his athleticism and agility to bend the corner. Then he transitions into rip move, which you can see right here, and once again he's quickly finding his way into the backfield. Maybe Huff's most underappreciated skill though is his ability to transition speed to power, and he has a fantastic bull rush despite just being 255 pounds. Here specifically with Upton Stout blitzing, he's able to collapse his pocket and force Rattler right into the arms of Stout. Another thing about Huff, because he's such an athletic player, he's the perfect candidate to run stunts with in San Francisco's wide 9 defensive front. To really illustrate this point, on this play, Williams is slanting to the outside while Yetur Gross-Matos slants in front of the center's face while Huff loops over the top to come on this stunt, which requires a defensive end with a ton of athleticism, and almost in a second Huff's able to get to the center, uses a double hand swipe to shed his block, and once again is putting pressure on Rattler. And because Huff knew San Francisco was so successful with these stunts throughout this game against the Saints offensive line, he used this to his advantage to set up a hump move. Here in the fourth quarter, for instance, he knows 71 knows San Francisco's defensive line loves to run stunts, so he's faking like he's going to loop over the top, which gets 71 to think that Yetur Gross-Matos is going to be slanting in front of his face, so he starts to commit that direction. And with the tackle's momentum going that direction, Huff comes through on probably the most elegant hump move I've ever seen, because he didn't even have to get the tackle moving the direction with his force, but more so his mind, and then once again, he's putting pressure on Rattler. This is just something that continued to happen throughout the game. The final aspect of Bryce Huff's pass rush I wanted to touch on is the versatility he offers San Francisco's defense because of his athleticism. With the Eagles, he almost played an outside linebacker position, and while I don't think he's natural there, it does allow Robert Saleh to get extremely creative with his blitzes. Here on this play, for instance, he's sending D. Winters on the blitz, having Michael Williams slant to the outside, teed up both the center and guards block. Meanwhile, on the left side of this offensive line, Saleh is faking the stunt to open up the lane for D. Winters, with Huff dropping into zone coverage to further confuse Rattler on this play. Outside of Huff's ability against the pass, he's also a pretty underappreciated run defender so far for San Francisco in my opinion. One thing he does really well, for instance, is stop the read option, which will be vital headed into this Cardinals week. On this play specifically, for instance, he first is getting outside contained, making sure Rattler doesn't pull it, and as soon as he's able to confirm Kamara is getting this ball, he's closing in on this play. In a similar way on this RPO, he quickly sets the edge, and with him able to identify Rattler taking off, he's able to shed this tight ends block and tackles Rattler for no gain. And in a similar way to his pass rush, Huff has pretty underappreciated power for a player of his size. Here, for instance, on this inside run, the Saints think they can block Huff with just a tight end, but Huff quickly shows this isn't the case as he collapses this tight end right into Alvin Kamara's running lane, and then finishes off this play shedding the tight end's block and making the tackle here. The final aspect of Huff's run defense I wanted to touch on is the pursuit he offers San Francisco's defense. You'll never see him giving up on the play. To really illustrate this point, on this play, working opposite side of this run, he does a great job of keeping his hands active on this tight end throughout this rep, and then closes on this back, and while it's not like a loss on this play, he does stop the much bigger play. With all these positives to Bryce Huff's game though, there are some clear weaknesses, with the most notable in my opinion just being his size. He's only 255 pounds, so offensive linemen can double team him and push him outside of the play, especially on running plays. Bryce Huff can also be overly reliant on his speed to beat offensive linemen, so sometimes the tackle will start cheating in his kick slide step, which will allow him to actually beat Huff to his set point. So headed forward, Huff needs to continue to mix his pass rush moves like we saw in the Saints game so he doesn't become a one-dimensional pass rusher. On top of that, Huff is coming off a torn ligament in his wrist he sustained last season for the Eagles, so this year he needs to prove he can remain healthy for San Francisco. But overall, when I'm looking at Huff as a player, even with these concerns, I think San Francisco has found their next dominant defensive end opposite Bosa. I mean, on paper, he's the perfect fit for San Francisco's wide 9 defensive front. He can get off the ball extremely quickly, bend the corner, and this season, I've loved watching his technique. So by the end of the year, I wouldn't be surprised to see San Francisco's pass rush specialist in Bryce Huff end up being a Pro Bowl level player. But ultimately, these are just some of my thoughts about him so far in San Francisco's defense, and I'd like to hear your thoughts about him reuniting with Robert Saleh. Do you think he can end up being a player similar to D. Ford for San Francisco's defense, a rotational pass rush specialist that comes in maybe 25 snaps a game, but is dominant on 15 reps of those snaps? Or do you think he'll be good, but not great for San Francisco's defense? It would also mean a ton to me if you did enjoy this video, if you could go ahead and like and subscribe. It truly helps out the channel a ton, and as always, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.